My downstairs Karen neighbor called the police on me while I was sleeping, so I bought liquid farts and made her life hell. Update 1. Random noises and the first police report. I built a machine like a battle bot that would randomly hit the floor making a dull thud. It had a weighted arm with a boxing glove attached to the end so that no damage is done to the floor. I set up a program to engage the motor at different intervals and different durations, at times when I knew other neighbors were not home. The randomness made it extremely difficult to pinpoint where the next sound would happen, how often or when, to be able to record it. Karen called the police. They showed up just as I was coming home from work. They asked if I lived in the apartment alone and said they had a complaint that someone was loudly banging on the walls and floor. They saw that I had just got home, and I could show them on my phone when I had checked into work and checked out. I let them know that no one lives with me and no one had been in my apartment all day. They were satisfied with my answers and luckily did not want to come in and investigate. From what I overheard of their conversation with Karen as they tried to leave, she had apparently called hours ago and the dispatcher told her that it was during the day and people were allowed to make normal sounds in their home. So she claimed that the noise was not normal. It was excessive pounding. The dispatcher said officers would be out as soon as they were available. 4 hours later was obviously not what Karen had expected, and she made it known to the officers. She wanted them to stay and listen since she was not able to get it on recording. They stayed for another 15 minutes and heard nothing. Of course they didn't. I had already turned the robot off. But I did make a point to step a bit louder when walking through the apartment so the officers would assume that the sound she was hearing were just normal footsteps and that there was nothing they could do about it. They told her to take it up with the landlord. That's when I heard something wonderful. She told the police the landlord told her that if she calls again to complain about neighbors being too loud without any proof, then the landlord would file harassment charges. That's why she had decided to call the police. The officers finally told her good evening and left. Update 2. Second police report. This time I was in bed and did nothing. It was about midnight and I had fallen asleep on the sofa when I got a knock at the door. I opened it to see the same two police officers who had visited a week before. They said there had been a noise complaint about loud music. I told the officers that I had been sleeping and there was no music. I offered them to come in and see for themselves that I had no kind of sound equipment. I had already dismantled the robot and taken it to work to show my boss. He thought the idea was genius and wanted to use it on his neighbor, his mother-in-law. They came in and saw that I didn't even have a TV. I have an awesome gaming setup with $500 gaming headphones. I don't need speakers, I prefer these. The only external speakers I have is my phone, and with it on full volume it cannot be heard outside the apartment. They could even see where I was sleeping on the couch. Satisfied with this, they went down to confront Karen for wasting their time. They told her that she is very close to charges of misuse of 911 and making a false police report since this was the second time they had come out and found nothing. She argued that both times I was watching to see when they arrived and turned off the music. They could not prove she was lying, so they could only warn her to stop calling 911 if there was no emergency. But this event pushed me to my limits. I absolutely hate being woken up, especially by the police. Now the gloves were coming off. I went online and bought a bottle of liquid farts. I've never bought anything like this before. Only saw them used on those old shows where people would prank each other. So I got 6 or 7 different brands to see which one would be the most effective. The only problem would be finding an effective delivery method. Luckily, one of the manufacturers thought of this for me. It comes with a very thin straw attachment, about 50 centimeters long. It could easily fit into a crack under a door. Now I just have to wait for Karen to leave. This is tricky because she never leaves. That's why she always wants it to be quiet so she can enjoy her life. But she has to eat, and that means going grocery shopping. I just need to figure out when she goes, so I set up a nanny camera shaped like an angry old man shooting the middle finger, looking out my front window. I figured that would get her attention so I can clearly see her face, and when she leaves her apartment, and for how long. I didn't have to check the video. I knew when she had seen it because she called the landlord immediately. He told her it was my First Amendment, right to free speech, especially in my own home. He reminded her about calling him for no reason, and this was her last warning. He did call me to let me know that if another tenant called to complain, I would have to take it down. It was so hard to understand him through all the laughter, but I got the message. I took it down after we ended the call. I really did not want to anger any other neighbors, but now I know that every Tuesday at 2 p.m., she goes to buy groceries and she is gone for nearly 2 hours. I took the following Tuesday off.